Okay, we've reached the magic 2 o'clock Eastern hour, so we'll go ahead and get started. Again, this is Brian Berry from ScanForce. Welcome into another edition of our continuing educational series on how to learn more about some of the features brought to you by ScanForce and our warehouse management and inventory collection system and all the ancillary products that we have that can help augment Sage 100. Today, specifically, we're going to be talking about multi-bin. Before I go any further, I will let you know that we're going to have a Q&A at the end, so I would strongly encourage you to input any questions into the chat feature within GoToMeeting. So just click on chat, type your messages in, and at the very end, we'll have some time for Q&A. Okay, so in case you might forget before we get to the end, go ahead and key those chats in as we go, and then we'll get the questions answered before we're done. So first of all, with multi-bin, just a little bit of background. In Sage 100, it's what's termed as a single bin system, meaning that within Sage 100, you have one field to enter a location for every item code. That means that Sage assumes that all quantities of one particular item live in one place in your warehouse, whether you have one of them or a million of them. Sage assumes they're all in the same place. And that's not really realistic for most warehouses. Quite often, we find customers that have many locations where they may have the exact same item, and they all have different reasons for that. We're going to talk through some of those today. So, this multi bin, one distinction I would like to make, this lives inside Sage. This is an overlay on top of the existing Sage inventory that expands it from a single bin system into a true multi bin system. So when you look and interact and see your inventory inside Sage, not in ScanForce in the warehouse management system, but inside Sage, you're going to get to see exactly where everything is and in what place and the quantities in each of those places. So we are truly augmenting Sage here. This is not something that exists offline from Sage in the warehouse management system. That's one area that I find as I talk to customers all day, every day, that's a bit of a misconception. They feel like when they add something like ScanForce, a warehouse management, a barcoding system to their ERP, in this case, Sage 100, that everything will live and happen inside the WMS. And that's really not true in our world. We are integrated so tightly into Sage that your data will always live in Sage. What we do is we pull down one transaction at a time, like a receipt for a PO, or shipping a sales order, or doing a physical count, or a manufacturing transaction. And we update that transaction with items and quantities and such, and then we send it back to Sage. So the data will always live in Sage. We, ScanForce, are a data collection company. So we collect data, we update the master repository of data, which is Sage 100. Okay, so let's real quick look a little deeper into what we're going to be talking about today. First, I'm going to give you a very brief overview from ScanForce. I know from a lot of you that are joining in, we're a known entity, either an existing customer of ours or one of our valued Sage reseller partners. But for those of you that may be new, I'll give you a little glimpse behind the curtains and let you know a little bit about us as a company. And then we're going to dive right into multi-bin and look at the visibility that you gain. And again, this is inside Sage. Then we're going to talk specifics and how multi-bin interacts with things in the warehouse, specifically receiving and picking shipping functions. And that's where we'll spend most of our time today. Okay. And I'll go through some of the add-on features that you can utilize on our scanning side in the warehouse, then how it interacts with multi-bin. And then we'll talk a little bit about pallet tracking, because that's another feature that's available to you within the multi-bin universe, if you will. And then at the very end, a couple of ancillary products like replenishment reporting, because if you have things in multiple places, you may have something that tells you when you need to move it from point A to point B. That's replenishments, that's built in. We'll also talk about physical inventory counts and how that can be impacted with a multi-bin. And then, of course, the Q&A at the very end. So real quick, and I always tell people at the beginning of these, I'm not going to read these screens. We all went to kindergarten. I know a lot of you are consuming this information offline afterwards in like a recorded format. So you can pause and read this as you wish. But the point is, we've been around for quite a while. and we have over 10,000 users that are using this solution. Okay, so this is not a fly by night company. We've been around for a long time, and we actually grew out of Sage 100. It was a Sage 100 client way back when that said, I want to scan barcodes. How do I do that? And ScanForce was born, and it's been growing and expanding ever since. Okay. Now, what we do or what we have, first of all, WMS, which stands for Warehouse Management System, big fancy word for barcoding solution. Okay. We have three versions: Core, Select, and Premier. The Premier version is the one that we would be talking about today because that's the version that has this multi bin built into it. It's not a separate thing, it is part of the Premier Warehouse Management System offering. And then we have two others that are non-multi-bin, that's the Core and the Select, that have different feature level sets. And if you're a prospective client, the very first conversation that you would have with anyone at ScanForce, that would be with me personally, and I would guide you through a discovery call, and we would determine which version makes the most sense in your world based on where you are today. And then maybe we go ahead and map out what the next evolution would be. So we might have a phase one and a phase two. But that's a conversation that we will have. I'll hold your hand through the entire process. And then just below that, label printing. What good would be as a barcoding company if we couldn't print labels with barcodes on it? So of course we do that at various steps like receipt of goods or manufacturing, making new stuff, and picking and shipping. Okay. We also have manufacturing over on the right-hand side there, and we integrate to all the Sage 100 enhancements for manufacturing. We'll talk a little bit about that today as we go. And then at the top right, this is really a separate entity. We have two products: the warehouse management system with the label printing and manufacturing part of that. And then separately, we have mobile sales, which allows you to take sales orders, create invoices and quotes when you're completely disconnected from Sage. So if you're at a trade show or you're visiting a customer, something like that. So if that's an issue, we can certainly have that conversation, but that's really not what we're here to talk about today. So we'll stay focused on multi-bin and the warehouse for our conversation today. Okay. And some things that we feel like set us apart: speed, just based on the architecture of our solution. We're getting millisecond response times on most of these, and I'll be happy to discuss and get pretty deep in the weeds on our architecture and how that works if you want, but not really the topic for today. We also feel that it's very intuitive because we grew out of Sage 100. The terminology and the flow is very 100 centric. So if you're used to Sage 100, this is going to seem like just old hat to you. Okay. And also our support, something that we feel like sets us apart. This is one of those things where please don't take my word for it. Ask anybody in the Sage 100 world, and they'll tell you that ScanForce is top of the class when it comes to supporting our clients. Okay. All right, I'll get off my soapbox about who we are, and let's talk about why we're all here today. Multi-bin. Going to go through all the different features, the places where multi-bin sort of attaches in, and how you can interact with that as we go. First, let's start with a quick definition of what multi-bin is. Well, it is an extension of Sage Inventory, as I mentioned before. So when you interact with multi-bin and you're looking at your inventory, you're doing that from within Sage. You just click on the warehouse and you see that. And I'm going to show you what that looks like in the next couple of screens. Okay. So anytime you're moving product from point A to point B, we can reserve inventory in a particular place. You can have a QA hold bin. A lot of our like food customers that have items that have to be inspected before they're let loose on the warehouse, we can have a bin called QA hold or quarantine or whatever you want to call it. And the inventory in there is truly quarantined. So we can do that through multi-bin, which is something that Sage really just can't do out of the box. Okay, so let's go take a look at what Sage looks like without multi-bin first. This is just a screen snip from Sage. You see the green S up here. This is just a standard item inquiry screen. I'm looking at item 1905. It's a white widget. And I can see in my 000 warehouse what I've got on hand, what's coming in, what's supposed to go out, and what's available. What it can't tell me is, has somebody already picked the 128 we need? Have they been moved somewhere else? Or are they still part of this 1,015 and maybe they're all sitting on the same shelf? Or maybe somebody's already picked all or some of these. So maybe there's only 187 available on that shelf. Or maybe if they haven't picked all of them, maybe there's a subset of the 115, or excuse me, the 1,015 that's on that shelf. Sage just can't tell you that because, again, it's a single bin system. It assumes that they're all together until it's completely gone from the warehouse. Okay. So that was fine 30 years ago, but we're not living in 30 years ago. We're living in today, and we've got much better technology. So, what multi bin from ScanForce allows me to do is drill down inside that warehouse and see a screen that looks like this. See, I'm still inside Sage. See my green S appear. But now that same item 1905, the white widget in the same 000 warehouse, now when I see this bin location column, this is every little nook and cranny in my facility where that item lives. For instance, on my receiving dock, I've got 50 units. They may have just come in this morning. They're still sitting on the receiving dock. Okay, somebody needs to go get those and put that away. We're going to do that in the very next screen. Likewise, 15 units have been picked and moved over to the staging area waiting to be shipped out. They're not in the normal inventory storage location. Those 15 have been moved to this shipping staging area. And where I have one location called receiving and one location called shipping, I do that on purpose because when I'm doing demonstrations for clients, I want it to look very simple because it has to sort of make sense to everybody when they see it on the screen and adapt to multiple different Sage worlds because all 14,000 of you Sage 100 users do not operate the same. In your world, you may have 10 dock doors and 5 are for receiving and 5 are for shipping. That's great. Let's make each one of those a bin. So door 1, door 2, door 3, or bay 4, bay 5, bay 6, that can exist in multi-bin. And instead of seeing shipping, you'll see bay 7 or door 7, and you have 15 units sitting there. So you can get as granular and specific with your use and setup of multi-bin as you wish, whereas mine is set up very generically. Okay. Again, I'm trying to appeal to all worlds when I'm showing it, but we'll make it very specific. The stuff that you see on my screen today, like I have aisle A, B, C, D, E here, okay, multiple aisles, and I have an aisle and a vertical rack and then a shelf number. So in your world, you may have 4 segments. You may have a zone in the front before you get to a row and a rack and a bin. Or you may have a row, a rack, a shelf, and then a bin separate. So you may have another element either on the front or the back. That's okay. Multi-bin will allow for that. So your bin names, the nomenclature that you use, will still be what you use going forward. We'll just import that, plug that into multi-bin. Okay. And likewise, up top, I have an overstock location versus a picking location. Actually, I have 3 picking locations here. But the best example is, when you go to Home Depot and you're walking down the aisle and they've got everything under the sun except the one stinking thing that you went to get. The one size screw that you need isn't there. Well, right over your head, there's a full pallet of those. Somebody just needs to replenish that. Well, guess what? Our multi-bin has replenishment reporting built in. It's one of the very last things we're going to talk about today. So stick around for that. So it would basically tell me to go get stuff. I got 300 units sitting in overstock. Go get some and move it to one of these pickable locations. And we'll even tell you which locations it needs to be replenished into. Okay. This one's kind of interesting. Components for production. For those of you that aren't manufacturers, you could tone out for just a second. But if you are manufacturing, sometimes you don't want the person running the machine to go all the way into the racking system where you store stuff to get what they need. Wouldn't it be nice if we knew what we needed for that production run and someone could just go grab 25 units and move it over to the production area? Well, this bin called components for production or component prod for short, that's what that represents. So it's just an area in the manufacturing area where I can bring the components and they will be there so people to have quick access to. And then once they're done, if there's leftovers, I can simply move it back. It's really that simple. Okay. Another thing that we could do, in addition to having one generic location called components for production, if you have 5 production lines, we can call each one of those a bin. And I can move it to production line number 2. And that way they need these 25 units, but the other folks don't. So it gives you as much specificity as you want. There's a $10 word for you. With how you set up multi-bin. So again, you can get as granular and specific as you want or keep things very generic. Here's another tip. Some people will keep it very generic in the beginning when they're getting used to this multi-bin option, and then they will get more specific as they go. You can add to this. If you start generically with shipping, that's fine. And then eventually, if you want to paint off 5 areas on the floor over by the shipping dock and call it stage 1, stage 2 through stage 5, then you can pull everything for an order and put it in stage number 2. And that way, when the truck arrives, everything in that painted off area for staging area number 2 gets loaded on the truck and we get it out the door really quick. It's just a way of making things more efficient in the warehouse. Okay. Now, let's talk about doing putaways. Remember, I mentioned I've got 50 units sitting on the dock and we want to put them away. Well, if you have inventory sitting on the dock, you've checked it in from a PO through our receiving application, which is a whole nother topic, then we need to put that away. So that's going to look like this. I've got a couple of screenshots here from my handheld. I've already scanned the item. So I've locked in item 1901. That's an orange widget in this case, not the same product we were looking at a moment ago. Item 1901 is an orange widget in my demo system. And I know it's sitting on the receiving dock. That's the from location. So we're doing a movement from here to somewhere else. Well, the first thing it's going to ask is, how many do I want to move? Well, the system will tell you there are 4 of these sitting in that bin. And remember, receiving is a bin for me in multi-bin. It's a place where I have inventory stored. So I could move all 4 at one time. I could move 2 here and 2 there. If I need one of them for manufacturing because they're down 1 unit, I could go move it 1 to manufacturing area, that component prod area like we just saw, and I could put the 3 of others away somewhere else. And the somewhere else is what's defined in the next screen. Once you input a quantity here, it advances you to the next screen. And now it's asking for the to location. Now mine says to location or pallet. And I do apologize for my cough. So I have pallet tracking turned on here. Not all of you will. Not everybody ships in pallets, but you have the ability to define a place, a bin, a shelf, a laydown area of the floor, a manufacturing area, a staging area. You could define the location where it's going to go, or you could put it on a pallet if you want to do pallet level tracking. And it's telling me right here, the primary location for this item is over on aisle A. Well, that's great information for me because I'm the new guy. I just started yesterday. I don't know anything. I don't have any of the tribal knowledge. So I just look at my screen and scan the item, and it's telling me to go to aisle A. So now Mr. New Guy is just as efficient as somebody that's been around for 10 years. All I have to do is read the screen. It's telling me take 4 of these orange widgets to this location. I take them there, I scan the sticker, the barcode that we put at that location. It populates this field and it's instantly moved. That's a big distinction. I said instantly moved. We have a setting that 99% of our users keep turned on. It's called instant bin transfers. We all know Sage is a very batch happy system, right? Nothing happens until somebody presses the magic batch button, okay? And if you've received something and you to move it somewhere, it's like you can't. If you want to do something, you want to ship it out because it's been a back order forever, or it needs to go rushed into manufacturing because we've been waiting on this stuff. But it doesn't exist in Sage until somebody presses the magic button and posts the batch. Even though I can stand on the stuff sitting here on my receiving dock, I can't do anything with it. So because we are a master developer in the Sage world, we have the ability to augment a lot of the features and functions in Sage. One of them is the ability to make this type of transfer instantaneous. As soon as I scan the location where it's going to go, it's there in Sage. I don't have to wait for that to be batch processed and approved. Now, if you want it to go through that process, we can. We just turn a setting the other direction and it goes into an IM or inventory management batch and somebody approves it. But 99% of our customers say, hey, all I'm doing is changing geography. I want that to be instantaneous. So a split second later, if somebody goes into Sage and looks for it, guess what? It's going to show up over here on aisle A, not on my receiving dock where it started. Okay. So once we get things put where they belong, okay, that's part of it. That's a big part of the receiving process for us. Okay. Now, another thing that can be done in receiving is this concept of wave receiving. Okay. Now, for us, a wave is simply a group of transactions. Imagine this scenario and tell me if this happens in your world. You place multiple POs on one of your biggest vendors. They send you a truckload of stuff, and it may have 5 or 10 of your purchase orders worth of stuff on that one load. Instead of sending you individual shipments, if you get bulk shipments that have multiple POs, if that is the case, this is for you. If not, then maybe this doesn't apply, and that's okay. That's why we have all these little parts and pieces that you can use to tweak a process or add an efficiency. So we create a wave, we group these orders together. Now, here's the big efficiency game with wave receiving. Okay. I know what bin that's supposed to go to, like the screen we just saw over on aisle A. There's a specific place, but I've got the same item on 5 POs. It's a fast mover. I order it multiple times. 5 of these POs are coming in. I've got the same item. If you receive those one at a time, the guy in the warehouse has to go put that away 5 times because they're doing this as individual transactions. But if we know they're all coming in together, we can waive them and then we can do one receipt in totality. I can see the complete total quantity of that item across all POs, check it in, and if it matches, ScanForce will spread the quantity across all the POs appropriately, and that person can do one put away to that bin location where it lives. So I always say that footsteps cost money and ScanForce saves you footsteps. Okay, i.e., ScanForce saves you money. So by allowing you to do one put away instead of 5 unique trips, that's a lot of footsteps. It's a lot of time. It's a lot of labor hours that we have saved, and these are hourly workers most of the time. So there's a big ROI there. All right. And again, wave receiving, I know it's not going to appeal to everybody, but if it does, it's a big appeal typically. Okay. So let's move on now. We've talked a little about receiving and putaways and wave receiving and how that interacts with multi-bin. Let's flip the script a little bit and talk a little about sales orders. Okay. But before we go and get the stuff that we need off the shelf for a sales order, there's some magic that can happen behind the scenes in Sage and ScanForce. And the first thing that we want to talk about is auto allocations. Okay. An allocation is simply a reservation. That's just a term that's used. It's an auto allocation or automatically reserving inventory. Now, I have a picture up there showing FIFO, first in, first out. That is by far the most common way that people try to allocate and ship their product out. But it's certainly not the only one. There are many different versions here, and we allow for those. What we want you to do is during the implementation, we want to say, how do you want your warehouse to work? In what philosophy do you want to deploy at a high level that will trickle down through our application? And then it will allow the workers to work within the confines of that business rule that you've set up at a high level. Again, FIFO is the most common, so I'm going to explain that. But again, there are others. So, especially in a perishable world, we want the first thing that came in to go out first because it's going to spoil. All right. If you ever bought fish in the grocery store, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You just cut it open and you hope it doesn't smell. So you want them to give you the old, the freshest stuff. You want the grocery store wants to turn the oldest stuff first so it doesn't go bad. That's what we're trying to do here. Okay. So this auto allocation within ScanForce, because we know this item exists in multiple places, we know the age of the items in those places. And when an order is placed, ScanForce can say the oldest stuff is over here on aisle C. So I'm going to reserve or allocate that inventory. And then the user goes to that place and they get it. So we're essentially forcing compliance with what management wants us to do. Okay. It's easy for management to say, ship the oldest stuff first. But you know, human nature is what it is. If I received something last week and I put it down over here and I have no clue where the shipment that came in 3 months ago is, I'm just going to go to where the stuff is from last week because I remember. Okay. That's the newest stuff. It's the last thing that we want that person to do. So the system can take over that thought process and that tribal knowledge and then make it easy on the user by telling them exactly where they need to go and exactly what they need to do. Okay. Now, there are different sets of rules for allotted and serialized inventory versus regular inventory. Regular meaning just it doesn't have a lot or serial number. So again, this doesn't apply to all of you, but if you have lots or serials, this is very specific because if I have a serialized item, a piece of electronics that has a number stamped on the back of it, I know that this unit is different from every other one. I know exactly when it was received. I know exactly where it is in the warehouse. If it's the oldest thing in my warehouse, ScanForce will make sure that's the one that gets picked and shipped first. Same with lotted inventory. So a lot of you that deal with perishables, it's lot control. Same rules apply. I know exactly when this lot was received, and we can make sure that it gets out first. Okay. Now, with these rules, let's talk about non-lotted and serialized inventory, just general inventory. Things like nuts, bolts, O-rings, anything like that. There's nothing unique about them. So if I have 1,000 of them already and I get another order of 500, I'm just going to dump the 500 in the bin on top of the 1,000, right? They're now commingled. I have no idea which nut or bolt or screw is the oldest in that bin. There's just 1,500 of them, and they came in at two different times. Okay. So I can't tell you which one of those is the oldest. But for things that you don't dump in a bin like that, if it's boxes you're putting on a shelf, if you put one shipment away yesterday on aisle A, but 3 months ago you put a shipment on aisle B away, ScanForce knows the age of those two receipts and when they were put away. So even though it's not a lotted or serialized item, I know the timing of when that put away was done. So I can allocate to the bin that was put away the oldest ago. Okay. In other words, if this stuff just came in yesterday, I'll ignore that. I want the stuff that came in the longest ago. Okay. So even for non-lotted and serialized inventory, ScanForce can still help you maintain FIFO. And again, that's just the most common. We have other methods. For instance, maybe you want your picking to be really super fast and efficient. Okay. If you've got trucks that are just get turned like that, okay, we can set it up that way. We can set up rules that say make it as fast as possible. Here's a scenario. I've got 10 units in one bin. I've got 100 units of the same thing in another bin, 10 and 100. Okay. If somebody places an order for 50, what do you want the system to do? Well, if you want it to be fast, you want it to take you to where you've got 100 so you could do it in one pick. Boom, truck is loaded, turn it, I'm on to the next order. Okay. Makes perfect sense. We have customers that do that all day, every day. But we also have customers that say, you know what? Our inventory is spread out all over the darn place. And if you're on this webinar to talk about multi-bin, there's a decent chance I'm talking about you. So if you have stuff just everywhere, okay, you may want to use the system to your advantage to sort of clean your inventory up as you go. So if I get that order for 50, maybe you want it to pick the small quantity first, clean that inventory location out, and then go to a second location to get the rest. That's perfectly acceptable. We know that it's going to take two picks, it's going to take slightly longer, but if cleaning up your inventory is the primary focus as opposed to speed, maybe that's okay for you. In fact, I know one of our customers, when they came in, that was their goal. They said, we have onesie twosies all over the place, but nobody ever picks them because they just go to where the bulk inventory is because they know they can do it in one pick, and that's easier. So they had the system set up to clean up the inventory as they go. And then once they did, they felt like they had everything sort of consolidated. Then they changed the rule. That's something that you can do on the fly. So now the system can react in a FIFO or a more efficient manner or whatever a rule you want to change it to. It's not written in stone. You can change this over time. You're in control of how you want to run your warehouse. And we have numerous rules for either non-lotted and serialized or for those items that are lotted and serialized. And they can be different. Okay. Because again, a little bit different knowledge that we have about them because of the uniqueness of lots and serials. Okay. So now that we have this allocation, the system has told us it knows where the best place is for me to go pick this item. I have to convey that information to the person on the shop floor. And we do that through a process called directed picking. So on the handheld, when I go to pick that sales order, it's going to do a couple of things. Number one, it's going to look at my warehouse and then compare it to my orders. Let's say this order has 10 line items that need to be picked. Okay. The first line item and the seventh line item are on a shelf side by side over there on aisle A, farthest left aisle in my warehouse. So does it make sense to pick the first item and then go pick the second item on the order and the third? And finally, we get to the seventh item and we walk right back to where we were on aisle A, right beside the first pick, and we make the seventh pick. It makes no sense. Okay. Any operations manager should be throwing their hat across the table right now because that's just stupid. You don't want people to do that. You want them to be efficient. ScanForce will do that for you. Today, when you're doing it on paper, sometimes that can be difficult, but we're going to use directed picking. We know the allocation, we know the best place to pick all 10 items. It's going to shuffle the pick order to what I call pick efficiency order. So it's going to tell me pick item one, then pick item seven. Or maybe as I'm walking down the aisle, I pick item seven first, and then I get to item one. Okay. So the system will look at your whole inventory, your layout, and it will build a serpentine path for the user to walk through your warehouse one time, get everything they need in the most efficient manner possible. Again, footsteps cost money. ScanForce saves you footsteps. Okay. Directed picking is just one example of those. All right. Now, variations on a theme. We talked about wave receiving earlier. Now let's talk about wave picking. Okay. And again, this may not apply to everybody. I know it won't. But for those where it does apply, this is huge. If you deliver on your own trucks, you have a northeastern route and a southwestern route, okay? And you want to pick those so you can load those trucks. Well, I have 15 different customers worth of orders going on the southwestern route. We can waive them, put them together, and if 5 of them order the same thing, we can go to that pick location one time. There's the allocation and the directed picking tell the user where to go. We'll go there one time. We'll pick the total quantity we need across all 5 orders, and then we'll take them to a packing station and we'll separate them in the second step in the process. Now, ScanForce does not require you to use a 2-step picking shipping process. We certainly have a 1-step process if that makes more sense in your world. But for those of you that want to gather this type of efficiency gain, we can certainly deploy these kind of tools. Okay. So for the same reasons as we would want to do wave receiving and the same efficiency gains, we can do wave picking. These are completely separate. Wave picking may make sense for you, but wave receiving doesn't. Another person may be thinking the exact opposite. Wave receiving makes sense, but wave picking doesn't. Okay. Maybe you're trying to build a load going to one customer. Let's put all the orders on a wave. Let's pick it and ship it out there because the same item may be on multiple orders. So wave picking will take care of that for us and build a lot of efficiencies and save a lot of those costly footsteps. Okay. Now, in this instance, wave picking, we're talking about taking a bunch of small orders and putting them together. Okay. What's the flip side of that? Well, that's taking one big order and splitting it apart. We have a method for that too. It's called split picking. Okay. So if I have a big order and I look at it and I say, this is just more than one person can handle. Okay. We can split that. And the way that we do that is we have multiple metrics that we could split by. We'll talk about that. But what's going to happen is the pick ticket, if you will, we're going to get a -A, -B, -C version of that. And each one will have a subset of items. And the metrics could simply be you take the first 10 items, I'll take the next 10, you take the next 10, or 20 or 30 or whatever makes sense in your environment. Okay. Or maybe I'm going to do all of product group A and somebody else can do all of product group B. I had one customer that purchased the split picking because they were a pump manufacturer and their pumps were inventoried in one building and all the spare parts were inventoried in a separate building. But whenever they shipped one, there was a certain number of spare parts, consumable things like O-rings, gaskets, whatever, that went with it. So with split picking, one order for all the items, but it printed out as 2 different pick tickets, a -A and a -B of the same order in 2 different warehouses. And one of them had no idea what the other one was doing. And that's okay because warehouse A is going to go and get the finished product, the pump itself or multiple pumps, and put them on pallets or however they're shipping them. And then over in the other warehouse, completely oblivious to what was happening in the other warehouse A, the warehouse B worker says, I've got to go get one of these and one of those and one of those, all the spare parts. And then they came together at shipping and they went out holding hands, singing Kumbaya. So the system split it for us automatically, okay, by multiple different metrics. And this can be some custom metrics, or it could be things like line items or pick efficiencies or product class or whatever zones of the warehouse. You take the first 3 aisles, I'll take the next 3 aisles. There's multiple ways that we can split these. So again, If this applies to you, let's talk. Let's talk about your unique need and how we can make this work for you. Okay. All right. Let's circle back to one of our first conversations that we talked about pallet tracking. This is a biggie for a lot of you if you're shipping on pallets. Okay. Here's the big benefit. Pallet tracking allows me to touch something one time and really never have to touch it again. Okay. Because if you're doing things on paper, you can say you put stuff on a pallet, but that's never really stored in Sage anywhere. And when you get ready to ship that pallet, don't you kind of need to unbox it and move things around and make sure this thing in the middle is the thing it's supposed to be and sort of double check it? It takes a lot of time. Okay. But with our pallet tracking, we allow you to group items together onto a pallet, shrink wrap it. We're going to print you a pallet ID tag. And if you want, the pallet ID tag can list all the things, the items, quantities, lots, serials, that sort of stuff, and list it on the label on the outside of the shrink wrap. And then if you want to ship it, just scan the outside of it and everything ships. It becomes really efficient. Let me show you what this looks like inside Sage. Okay. So back to multi-bin, the bins. Okay. And here I've added a column called pallet. Now, we generically call pallet tracking license plating because not everybody ships on pallets. Some people ship in totes or baskets or barrels or bags or whatever, gaylords. There's a bunch of different methodologies that people use for shipping, but pallet is by far the most common, kind of like FIFO we talked before. So I'm going to refer to this as pallet tracking. I might slip up and say license plating at some point. They're exactly the same thing. Okay, we just generically call it license plating for those individuals that don't ship on pallets. Okay, but in this case, I'm calling this a pallet, and I have this long pallet ID number. Now, for simplicity's sake, I'm going to call this pallet 2, 8, and 10. Okay, just so I don't have to read off all these stinking numbers. So pallets 2, 8, and 10. Pallet 10. I've got 12 of them on that pallet. It's been moved over to the shipping dock, waiting to go out. Okay, pallet number 8. I have 20 of them. It's sitting in a location called finished goods for production. Remember when I first showed you multi-bin? I had that component prod location, and I said I could move inventory that are components or raw materials over there to be consumed in a production. Well, when it's gone, we've now made a finished good. And finished good has to be born into my warehouse somewhere into multi-bin. A lot of customers will simply create a location called finished goods, and that's where things are born into the warehouse. So I have a brand new pallet, pallet number 8 with 20 units that was just born today. And congratulations, it's a widget, it's an orange widget, and it's sitting over here in finished prod. Okay. This pallet number 2 got 40 units on it, and it's sitting over here on a shelf on aisle A. Now you'll notice A10000. It's listed twice up here, A10000. So in the same location, I have one pallet that's shrink wrapped. I also have 79 cartons loose sitting there as well that could ship as individuals, or they could be placed on a pallet. Maybe they're added to this pallet, or maybe it's full. Maybe we start a new pallet. So we can handle inventory whether it's palletized or non-palletized. You don't have to go full bore everything pallet. We can certainly do a mix of both. Okay. Now, this is how it's going to look in Sage. Remember, this is our green S. We're inside Sage, not the WMS. We're in Sage, and I'm seeing all the pallets. And right now, what I'm seeing is 40 units of this. But just like multi-bin allowed me to drill into a warehouse, pallet tracking or license plating allows me to drill into this ID number. And now I'm going to get this extra screen over here that says on pallet number 2, not only do I have 40 orange widgets, but I also have 10 gray widgets. So we can handle a mixed pallet. It does not have to be all the same thing. I know for a lot of people, one pallet is one product, and that's simple. Bully for you. For the rest of the world, they mix pallets and it becomes much more confusing. Imagine this when you're picking a pallet for a sales order, okay, the system, ScanForce, is going to assign you the next pallet number in sequence, so it'll always be unique. You never have to worry about that. Okay. And then I can scan any item and quantity combination onto that pallet, shrink wrap it. ScanForce then prints me that packing list version of a pallet tag that says at the top, this is pallet number 2. Here's my big chunky barcode that I can read from the seat of my forklift. And then underneath, I've got 40 orange widgets and 10 gray widgets. And if I have lots or serials, all that's going to be displayed. Okay. especially if you have lots or cereals. Okay, so we know which lot cereals are going to be on here because we're scanning them in, whether we're picking off a shelf or this is right out of manufacturing. We build this pallet, shrink wrap it, put this ID sticker on there. Okay, this could sit for a day, a week, a month, a year. It doesn't matter. Sage, the green S, knows these products that are on this pallet. So when I get ready to ship this out, all I have to do is scan the pallet. Everything inside the shrink wrap ships instantly. This is a classic case of touch it once instead of touch it two and three and four and five times. Okay. I touch it once, I build the pallet, I shrink wrap it, I put a label on there. I never have to go inside the shrink wrap again if I don't want to. Now, maybe you want to break the pallet and take something off of it, that's fine. But if it's going to ship complete, all we do is scan the pallet, the truck is loaded. If we have 20 pallets, we only scan 20 pallets. We don't have to scan 400 things on those 20 pallets. And we know exactly the lot numbers and the serial numbers that just went out the door. Okay. Huge ROI here, huge efficiency gain doing it this way. Okay. Again, touch it once, don't touch it three and four times. Okay. So that's pallet tracking in a nutshell. If you're into pallets, I would love to have an individual conversation with you, hear how you're doing it, and I can tell you how we can adapt because I'm telling you one way that this system can work. We have dozens and dozens and dozens of settings files behind the scenes that allow us to customize and tailor the way this looks and feels and reacts to you. So you let me know how you're doing it, and I can show you how it can change. Because what I'm describing here may be 80% of what you want, but it's missing one crucial piece. Let's talk about that. That piece may be there. We just need to change the setting file from what I'm showing you here. Okay. All right. Enough about pallets. Let's move on to talk about those bin replenishments that we discussed before. So with bin replenishments, in this case, I'm looking at item 1906. It's a black widget in my 000 warehouse. Over here on aisle E, it's a picking location, and I have 20 units sitting there. But somewhere I have an overstock location. I have 500 units. Now, first of all, again, like I said before, mine's set up very generic. We have one overstock. For a lot of people, overstock is just the top shelves. So if you have six high racking, the bottom three may be pickable, and the top three may be bulk, okay, or overstock or overflow, or whatever you call it. So maybe if this is row E, vertical rack 500, like the fifth rack we come to, shelf number one, okay, like the first shelf on the floor, maybe E550 is the fifth shelf up, and that's where this overstock exists. So this can get as specific as you need it to. So what we can do with multi-bin, with each one of these bins, like E510, I can set a minimum and a maximum. If I never want to have less than, say, 25 of these on hand at any one point in time, someone has picked this below that minimum of 25. It's only 20 there now. So I can run this replenishment report and it will show up this item and it says, hey, E510, you're low on black widgets. You need to go to wherever this overstock is, get X number of units and replenish it. Now, the beauty of that is you can hand that report to somebody on second shift or maybe the new guy, the most inexperienced person, and say, go replenish everything. Okay. So they can do that. They're learning a lot of valuable experience along the way. But the point is, your pickers, they're just snapping off orders because nothing ever runs dry. The biggest pain for any picker is they go to some place and the stuff ain't there. Okay. Yes, I live in Georgia. I said ain't. So it's just not there. So what they have to do is they got to stop. They got to get a forklift. They've got to pull something down, or even worse, they're not checked out on the forklift. They're not authorized to drive it. They got to go get somebody else to go get a forklift and pull something down and break a pallet and break cases and open them up and all that stuff. That just takes time that you don't have to waste. Replenishment does that for you during lean times, lack times, off hours, second shift, whenever you want to do that. That way, your pickers just keep on picking and they never get slowed down. Big efficiency gain here, okay? Because your pickers are probably a much more valuable and high priced, experienced employee other than the new guy who's going and doing these replenishments. So you can maximize the amount of money that you're spending on the important jobs and then let this fall to someone with less experience that may be less expensive to you, okay? Now, directed physical count. I really like this one, completely separate topic. But if you're doing a physical count, Normally, you just go to the location, and as you see this lady here on the left, she's scanning the location, and then she's going to scan the item and tell us how many are on this pallet or in this bin. Okay, same thing over here, same thing over here. Whether this is a full shutdown inventory at the end of the year, or whether this is a cycle count, really doesn't matter. Again, pardon the cough. So, what we can do different than that with multi-bin, we can direct them exactly where they want to go. So let's say you're getting ready to make a big purchase from a vendor, and maybe it's an overseas thing and it's got to be a container. It's going to be 6 weeks or 2 months before you see it. You got to get that buy right. You can't afford to miss it. So what we want to do is have our workers go out and count these 5, 10 items, wherever they are, that we're getting ready to purchase to make sure that it's accurate before we hit send on that PO. So what we do with directed physical count, we freeze the items that we want to count. What that does is it sends a to-do list to the handheld. And so now these people know exactly the items that need to be counted, and they can ignore everything else because you want a quick answer on just those items to be counted. So you don't want them to take the time to count the whole aisle. Just count 2 or 3 bins, send me the information back. And by the way, when they're done counting on the scanner here, they just hit a button. They're just going to scan here. They hit a button, and boom, it's instantly back in Sage. Okay. So what we can do is this. Maybe we want them to count in zones. Maybe I'm responsible for this area and somebody else responsible for another area. So when the directed physical count hits, I'm only going to see the bins in my area that I'm responsible for. So the same item, because this is multi-bin, the same item may exist in my zone and somebody else's zone. Well, I'm only responsible for counting the one bin in my place. They count theirs, my coworker, they count theirs, and they both roll up to Sage. Okay. So it's a really quick way for you to tell people exactly what you want them to do without having to send post-it notes or scribbled email on the back of an envelope or whatever to the warehouse, and people have to go interpret your chicken scratch handwriting and go count stuff. Okay. And doing it in ScanForce, as soon as they hit the button, boom, instantly back in Sage. Okay. All right. The last screen that I'm going to show you today, this is a freebie. This is an add-on, has nothing to do with multi-bin, but it's my favorite. I have to talk about it. It's image capture. Okay. This has become, in the last couple of years, our most requested add-on piece, image capture. It exists in 3 places. And what we're doing here is we're using the handheld. See, this is a handheld scanner the guy's got here. He's taking a picture of this truck. It looks like somebody stacked it up like a Jenga game. And he's taking a picture. So if there's any damage, guess what? He can go to the carrier and say, well, this is what it looked like when it left my dock. Okay. Some people will take a picture of every pallet before it gets loaded, and then take a picture in the back of the truck with all the pallets in there before they close the door. Okay. So that's called outbound image capture. If there's damage in transit, you go back to the carrier and you say, here's my images. This is what it looked like before. This is totally your fault. Where's my money? Okay. But it also works on the inbound side. Okay. So when things are coming in, if there's damaged goods, I can take pictures of that. I can take a picture of the damaged thing, the hole in the outside of the box that caused the damage. I can even digitize documents. If I have a packing list, bill of material, bill of lading, copy of an invoice, I can snap a picture of it. It gets digitized, and now I don't have to file anything. A lot of my customers tell me they have one person that their whole job is just to file stuff. Wouldn't you rather find something better for them to do than that? Okay. So what we do is we create a folder back in Sage where all these images get stored. And the name of the image file starts with either the PO number or the sales order number that we started with. And you can take as many images from that PO or sales order as you want. It's kind of a counter on the end, okay, to make each image unique. We've also, just in the last month, have added the ability to do this during manufacturing. So bill of materials completion, work ticket completion. If you want to take a picture of what you made before it's packaged, because sometimes you have to wrap things before it's packaged, and then you can't really tell what it looks like when you're shipping it because it's all bundled up and secured in store. So you take a picture of it coming off the line, then you wrap it, you take another picture, then you seal the box, so you take another. You can take as many pictures as you want, and we'll store all of these. Okay. And the user doesn't have to go get the camera, then take the card out, put it in a PC, and name everything appropriately and save it in the right place. They just go click and they're done. They forget about it. That's all they have to do is press a button while they're doing the receipt or the bill of materials or work ticket transaction completion or the sales order pick or whatever. Okay. This also integrates with Instadocs back in Sage. So if you know what Instadocs is, if you have it, it integrates with that. If you don't, that's okay. We'll create a folder for you to save these. Okay. All right. We've got just about 10 minutes left, and I am going to turn things over for Q&A. I'm going to ask Woody from our marketing team, I should say our crack marketing team, to come in and talk to us about the stuff that's come in on the chat. But first of all, if you want to contact us about anything that you've seen here, if you have any questions, comments, if you'd like a quote, anything, give us a call, ask for Brian. I'm the only Brian here, okay? Or email info@ScanForce. And the reason I have our generic info address up there instead of my own is intentional because I may have back-to-back-to-back demos one afternoon and never see my inbox all afternoon. But if you send a message to info, someone on my team will see it and you can get much faster responses. Maybe me, maybe somebody else, but somebody will get back with you and we can set up a call. Okay. All right. Woody, what sort of questions do you have for me?
Lots of questions coming in. The first one I did want, we had a couple questions early on about will this be recorded. I did want to remind everyone this has been recorded and we will be sending it out to everyone who signed up. So even if your coworker signed up and couldn't make it, they will get an email sent to them with the link to this video. The next question after that was someone talking about they're interested in wave receiving. How does the wave get created?
Okay, good question. I didn't mention that, I don't think. So we give you three different methodologies, whether it's receiving, picking, whatever. So you could do it in Sage, a little cumbersome, but it can be done. But more recent times, we've added the ability to do it from our management console, i.e. dashboard. So you can see all the orders, select the ones you want, and then add them to a wave. And you can even put comments on there like, hey, this is Brian's wave versus Woody's wave. So when we go to our handheld, I see, oh, Brian's wave, that's me. I click on my name, I go start picking stuff. You can also do it from the handheld. So a lot of people will still print physical pick tickets, and a lot of times we'll add a barcode for the sales order or purchase order number on that document. So if it's a pick ticket, have the sales order on there. I could rifle through all of my picks, and I could say, hey, look, these 5 orders are coming in on one load. I'm going to lay these 5 out, go beep, 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 beep. And then they've added to a wave on by the scanner just by scanning those orders. And now they're all grouped together. So it's really simple, 3 different methods. Whatever works for you, you can do it.
Next question. For directed physical count, can we control the frequency and number of bins?
So with directed physical count, what you're doing is freezing an item in Sage or a group of items. Okay. If that item's in one place, it's going to take them to one place to count it. If that item's in 5 places, it's going to highlight 5 places that they need to go to get a full count of that item. So you're not really controlling the bins that they're going to. You're controlling the items. ScanForce is determining what bins they live in and then sending people out accordingly to scan those. So hope that answered your question.
For image capture, can we use our own pallet dimensioner device?
So in order to run any of the ScanForce applications, the device would need to carry a license for ScanForce software. And we just have one license. And once that device is licensed, you can do anything. So if you have a specific device, as long as it is running Android or probably not iOS, but we support that. So either Android or Windows, like a Windows desktop, then yes, we could run our software on there and you could take pictures from there. It could also work on an iPhone for all that matters because we support iOS. But typically, it's the hand scanners that people use. But certainly, if we have tablets or something like that, then we can use it. So as long as it's a supported operating system, then it shouldn't be a problem.
What is the recommended way of relieving products when you are picking multiple items? Maybe that's receiving products.
Yeah. So I'm sorry. When you're receiving or picking,
Um, when you are picking multiple items.
Okay, so if I'm picking items, so the system has a couple different methodologies that it uses. If everything is just boxes sitting on the shelf, it's going to do it in pick efficiency order, like everything on aisle A before the things on aisle B, and so on and so forth. Okay, but if you're picking to a pallet, then maybe you have big, bulky things and you have small, delicate things. And the example I always use is when you go to the grocery store, you buy canned goods and you buy bread. And you're hoping the kid at the end of the belt has the sense enough to put the canned goods on the bottom and the bread on the top. Otherwise, you got to go buy a new loaf of bread. Same thing. ScanForce will use a method called pick to pallet. We can put logic in there and specify these are big, bulky things that have to go on the bottom. They need to be picked first. So maybe the efficiency of the order in which we pick them, we lose some efficiency, but we don't crush things that are delicate. So we're going to go pick the heavy, bulky things first, put those on the pallet, and then eventually end up with the small, delicate, dainty things on the top. So a couple different methods. Would love to hear your use case. If you can just give us a call, drop us an email, set up a call, and hear what your need is, and we can talk through what options make the most sense for you in your world.
Can the SO application for picking be used in work tickets as well as picking raw materials?
So if I think I'm interpreting your question correctly, you're using production management, you're doing work tickets, you want to pick the component inventories that are going to go into a work ticket. So we don't use sales order picking for that, but we have an add-on enhancement called Work Ticket Advanced Material Management. I know it's a mouthful, but that allows for the picking of raw materials. And if you recall all the allocation rules that I talked about for picking sales orders and directed picking and FIFO and things of that nature, we can apply those same rules to component inventory for production management. It's the first time this has ever been done. PM could never do this kind of stuff out of the box. So until about a year and a half ago, when we released this technology didn't exist. So with our material management enhancement, yes, we can allocate exactly the raw material that you want to use down to the lot or serial and direct the user where to go to get it and then where to take it to fulfill that work ticket. So I hope I answered your question correctly and didn't go down a rabbit hole there.
How can allocations be used to hold stock for specific SOs?
So some people will set up a bin for a customer. So if I talk to a customer that builds large electrical things, and if they have one component that goes in darn near everything they make, they may have 300 of them sitting on a shelf somewhere for general inventory or spare parts, but they have 5 big customers, and those customers can never run out of inventory. Okay, so they have power plants that get shut down if this stuff doesn't happen on time. So they'll create a bin called customer A, customer B, customer C, and they will keep a subset of their inventory in each one of those bins, which means they are basically sequestered for those clients. They're not part of general inventory. So the pickers for spare parts will only see the general inventory and not those. That's one way to do that. There are multiple ways. Okay. We also have the ability to quarantine inventory that comes in, like I think we talked about this in the very beginning, like for a QA hold, or if I want to make sure I have inventory enough for a job, I may create a unique bin just for that job, and I can move inventory to that bin, and maybe it's just a space up against the wall, but I just physically hold it there. But in Sage, it's sequestered, and I can actually through multi-bin settings turn off the ability for the handheld pickers to see into that bin. In Sage, we know it's there, we can see it, but the pickers picking for sales orders, that inventory becomes hidden for them. So it is truly locked down for that order, that job, that customer, and then the rest of the inventory is available to them. So again, I would love to have a conversation, talk about the use case there.
All right, we are at the top of the hour, but we still have lots of questions. You ready for more?
Yep. So if anybody needs to drop, like we said, I appreciate you coming very much. We're recording this. We'll get you the recording so you can hear all the other questions. But yep, I'm good to go. Woody, fire away.
All right, someone is asking about allocating for FIFO.
So allocating for FIFO. So when we, again, different business rules for lotted cereal versus non-lotted cereal. So we can do it either way. The big kicker is with lot and serial, no, we know exactly when everything was received. It's part of a lot or it has a unique identifier, a serial number. We know exactly when it came in. So we can tell you exactly which ones are the oldest. Okay. With general inventory, the issue becomes had they been commingled? If I have 2x4s and I just getting shipments of 2x4s and throwing them on the top, they're commingled. There's nothing unique about them. I can't tell you which one's the oldest and which one's the newest. Maybe the one on the top is the newest, maybe the one on the bottom is the oldest, but who knows? Okay. But if I put shipment A away yesterday and I put shipment B away 3 months ago, if they're put in different places, ScanForce, excuse me, ScanForce can know the date that each put away. And if they were put away uniquely, it can direct me to that location with the oldest stuff. So again, let's have a conversation. Let's talk about how you're using it and how FIFO can work in your world.
If an item has the same lot number, such as the same receipt date, what is the next factor used to allocate?
Well, with a lot, there really is nothing else because everything in a lot, it's like a batch. Okay. If I have a batch of barbecue sauce and I have 100 bottles, there's no difference between one and the next. So it really doesn't matter. They're of the same age. They are considered exactly the same. That's what lotted is. If we need more specific than that, that's really what Sage's serialized inventory is designed to add uniqueness. But a lot is a group of things that are considered exactly the same. So there really is no other level. Now, if we wanted to get fancy, we could sort of do a slight bit of customization. And I might say, if I have a portion of the lot in one place and another portion of the lot somewhere else, then maybe I want to apply the efficiency picking methodology to that. Okay. So the lot told me this is the oldest lot. I want to pick from it. But if it's in two places, if I know I can get everything I need in one place versus going to two, maybe I set the system up that way. That would take a little bit of tweaking, but we could certainly make that work because the logic exists.
Is it possible to allocate at ROG for a specific sales order at a PO level?
At receiving, there is a setting that turns on allocation logic. So, for instance, if you have an order that has a back ordered item, when we do receiving, the system can run through the allocation logic to see if there's an order that could be fulfilled based on this shipment. Okay. And then it notifies the picker so they know they could kind of set that aside, okay, for an order. So, yes, there is some allocation logic that exists at receiving.
With the pallet tracking, can this can I scan from a vendor to receive POs?
Yes, there is a setting within pallet tracking that turns it on at receiving. Some people do, some people don't. Some people, the reason they might not is they may not build pallets until it comes out of production, for instance. So the item doesn't exist until it's made. If you're a distributor and you're bringing things in at the pallet level, sure, let's turn it on at the receiving, and then we can scan pallet tags as they come off the truck and move it to point A or point B. So absolutely, we can do pallet tracking from receiving it all the way through if that's what you need to do.
With directed physical count, is there functionality to generate a counting schedule? We use ABC designation for our items with different required count frequencies.
So in ScanForce, we're doing the physical counting. We're not telling you when to count. So that would really be more of a Sage question. I would defer you to your Sage partner at that point from a consulting standpoint to see if there was something that could be done, some little script that could run in the background behind Sage that would tell you what to do and when to do it. ScanForce can execute it, okay? But ScanForce is a data collection app. We're not there to tell you what to count.
This question, would it be better to go to the location before entering in the quantity?
So, like if I'm picking an order, we have a difference in settings that determines the timing of the data entry. It's because sometimes I want to, if it tells me the item and the location of the quantity on my screen, I walk to that location, I scan the item, I scan the placard at that place, and I enter the quantity. Other people, they may have a lay down an aisle So it's somewhere in the aisle, like big bulky things. Often they have a lay down aisle. So there's not an individual bin or shelf. So then we have a placard at the beginning of the aisle. So maybe I want to flip the script and I want to scan the location and then walk down the aisle to find the item I want and then scan the item. Okay. So we can change the timing, whether it's location first or item first. Quantity is pretty much always last. Um, and I'd have to have a conversation to figure out the use case as to what the benefit is to entering the quantity first before we get to the place to, first of all, see if that quantity exists. Okay. So that would be outside the norm, but we have our own in-house programming staff. We write 100% of that stuff in-house, and we do our own development, and we do customizations all the time for clients that have unique requirements. So if that's something that's of interest to you, if that's something that's mission critical, we'll listen to it and we'll do a write-up and we'll tell you what it would take to make that happen.
Can you set up a QA or quarantine bin that can't be seen by the order entry team?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So at the bin level, you can turn off the visibility to certain ScanForce applications like picking. So for instance, if I'm doing chemicals that have to go through some sort of approval process, or if it's food product that has to be reviewed before it's released on the world, okay, it goes into a quarantine or QA or inspection bin, whatever you want to call it. And then that quantity is hidden from all the ScanForce handhelds. Now in Sage, I can still see it. If I go into Sage, I can go into multi-bin and I see that there's 50 units sitting in quarantine, but the pickers, they'll never see that. Okay. It'll never show up as a pickable inventory. Even if they try to, the system would say, you can't pick from that bin, it doesn't exist. It would direct them to one of the bins that has quantity already.
Do I need to enter in lot numbers for FIFO against lot numbers?
So oftentimes what we do with lotted or serialized inventory at receiving, we'll print a barcode and we use a QR code for the barcode on that sticker. And we'll embed the item code and the lot number to the same barcode. So every time you touch it, you go beep, we capture both pieces of data and we populate both fields, whether it's a lot or a serial. Okay. Obviously, serials are a one-to-one, lots are a one-to-many. So when you scan a lot, we're still going to ask for a quantity after that. Okay. Or if it's coming out of manufacturing and we're creating a new lot or a new serial, same thing. We can create a 2D barcode for that. And that way, every time we touch it, one barcode scan, I capture all the data I need. That way, there's no extra lift for your users. It's no extra data entry. One scan, I capture multiple pieces of information.
All right, and I think we have made it to our final question here. A lot of great questions. Thanks everyone for putting them in there. When you receive POs, can you factor in tariffs and freight to get the landed cost?
So we actually allow you to enter landed cost on the handheld. So if that's something that is included in the shipping documentation, we can turn on a landed cost field. Now, that's not normal, I would say. Most of our customers want to do that in the office rather than on the dock, but we do allow for it. There is a landed cost enhancement. It's a really small little thing that gets plugged into the handheld and it just turns on a field where they can input that landed cost. So if that's something that's important to you to do on the dock, absolutely we can do it.
All right, I think that's it, Brian.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Woody, and thanks everybody for attending. I greatly appreciate it. And I do hope that you'll reach out through one of the contact methods on the screen here. And I'd love to hear some of these use cases because you guys came up with some really interesting stuff that maybe I haven't heard before. I'd love to talk to you about it and figure out how ScanForce can help. So until we meet again, thanks for listening, and I hope to talk to you soon. Bye now.